What's going on, everyone? About 79% of stocks in the S&P 500 closed down in the red today. We can see that there is a lot of profit taking across the board as there is a monster hurricane headed towards Florida, which is sending some insurance stocks tanking lower, some generator stocks flying higher. At the same time, we have tensions in the Middle East continuing to roar, sending oil prices higher. We have some specific stocks like SMCI blasting to the upside after they reported good news, and there is a whole lot of stuff going on in the stock market right now. In today's video, we're going to cover everything you have to know. We're going to break it down nice and simply, and we're going to share some setups to keep on your radar throughout the week. Towards the end of today's video, we have a very interesting $800,000 big money trade, so stick with us. But like I said, we have a lot to cover, so let's get right to it, Tom.
Yeah, today was pretty insane, and Mike, I will say the hurricane coming up is definitely something that is starting to scare a lot of people out there. This hurricane is starting to become stronger and stronger. It's now a Category 5 hurricane, Mike, and it's looking like it's going to end up hitting the west side of Florida pretty hard here, right around that Tampa, Sarasota area. You can kind of see the outline here of what they're kind of looking for as it hits somewhere in between these two red lines, but this situation's pretty rough, Mike, but at the end of the day, there was actually some good movement in the market from this. I saw Generac was actually popping up quite a bit, of course. This is a generator company. They were up 8.5%. And then even some of the insurance stocks like PGR and Progressive, Allstate, and others were actually falling down quite a bit, like 3.85% by PGR, which has actually been making new highs recently. So very interesting to see what these insurance stocks and everything are doing from this situation. But of course, prayers go out to everybody with the hurricane.
No doubt, and you guys might not see me throughout the rest of this week, depending on how bad this storm is. But talking more about the situation as a whole and how it applies to the stock market specifically, like Tom said, we are seeing certain areas of the market benefit from this quite a bit, like Generac, which is ticker symbol GNRC. This is a generator company, and as you can imagine, they are in high demand right now. So this stock is ripping to the upside. Keep it close on watch, as there is a lot of attention to it. It has momentum, and the more pressure it puts on its recent highs, the stronger the bullish sentiment becomes, and it creates like this bullish feedback loop of just bullish price action and momentum. Keep this stock on watch. But another area of stocks that is moving in a pretty big way right now, like Tom mentioned, are insurance companies, and they already took quite the beating with this most recent hurricane, but now we have Hurricane Milton heading towards Florida, and only looking to make the situation even worse. Stocks like TRV, PGR, ALL, CB, AIG, and others are already selling off in anticipation of this event. Depending on how bad the storm is and how bad the losses are for these insurance companies, it is not all that unrealistic to see them fall further. Again, keep them close on watch. These stocks are already moving off this event.
Yeah, and I'm kind of worried, Mike, because the hurricane is pretty rough here. You know, it's got to be a Category 5, and of course, maybe it might change as it starts to head towards Florida here throughout the week, but I'm definitely worried about this. You know, there's a lot of people kind of like boarding up, of course. Obviously, anybody that's close to the water has to kind of sandbag up and everything, but it's going to create a lot of damage. I have a bad feeling, Mike. So it's going to be rough. Like you said, you might not even end up being here depending on how bad it ends up being. So hopefully it's not too bad, but nonetheless, those are some stocks that can move from it. I was also watching oil a little bit, Mike, like maybe looking for like some drilling companies, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I didn't see too many shutdowns or anything yet.
Yeah, so while oil doesn't have like the craziest news in terms of like the Gulf, oil has a lot of eyeballs on it right now as tensions in the Middle East are not calming down in the slightest bit. So today was the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th attack, and like we could just see from this headline, like the situation's just getting worse and worse in the Middle East. We're still waiting on an official retaliatory strike from Israel to Iran, but with that being said, oil prices are moving higher. Oil prices broke through $77 a barrel today, which is pretty crazy because, the oil normally doesn't move like it is now. And I'm pretty happy to see this sort of price action because we were pretty early to this oil move. And some of the recent big money trades like XOP are starting to print pretty nicely. So that's awesome to see, but continue to keep a close eye on stocks like XOP, XOM, OXY, BNO, and others, because as oil continues to rip to the upside, oil and energy related stocks have a lot to gain from that.
Yeah, and a lot of these stocks are still moving very well in the short term. I know that some of them are kind of slowing up a little bit. Like if we go to ZOM, it tried to break out a little bit today, but it ended up really not moving too much overall. It was mainly in like pre-market there. But I think still for the next few days, we could definitely see more price action from these. And Mike, I was looking at some like oil specific stocks like GUSH, for example. Others, I'm trying to find some stocks that follow oil more directly. I was also looking at UCO, which is another one that was actually up 6.8%. So that might be another one to keep on the radar. We'll talk about this one a little bit later in the video, wink, wink. But going forward with oil, Mike, it's a crazy situation. And I would not be surprised to see us around that $80 per barrel mark soon. And of course, Israel's still, staying active in the short term, right? Even though they haven't fully responded to Iran, they've been doing other stuff in Lebanon and other places as well.
Yeah, and one key risk to this situation is if we see like a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event, because a lot of people are buying oil and just other related, I guess you could say, assets right now, kind of in anticipation of Israel just striking some key Iranian like oil infrastructure and just like sites and wells and everything like that. What we do see in the stock market sometimes are like buy the rumor, sell the news events where it's like you have all this hype and, good price action heading into the event. But once the event itself happens, that's when like people start to take profits and, move on. In my opinion, the best way to play oil right now is with more of like a medium to longer term mindset. As we all know, especially with the situation as crazy as what we have going on in the Middle East, there is a lot of change that happens on a day-to-day basis. Trying to trade these minute moves on like a 2-minute chart makes your job a lot harder. Whereas if you're just trading like the broader trend at hand, it makes it a lot easier, and it also gives some of that like upside like convexity in the event something crazy did end up happening when the market was closed, or when the market was closed or happening at night. So with that being said, keep oil stocks still close on your radar. They are moving a lot right now, and I would say they have more attention than even some big tech stocks right now.
Yeah, they definitely do, but I will say one of the big tech stocks gave it a run for its money today, Mike. SMCI is actually popping off in a pretty good way today. Whenever you go to the daily chart, it doesn't look as exciting, but watch this. When you go to the 1-minute chart, you gotta love a nice 15% move from open today, right? That was one hell of a move here by SMCI, and they had some pretty good news, Mike. I actually could not believe the amount of GPUs that they're shipping per quarter, over 100,000 AI GPUs, and I just, they came out with these numbers today, and I was kind of blown away. SMCI has actually been a stock that has been downtrending pretty actively over the past few months. You can see how much they've actually pulled back, but they're starting to form a pretty good base here around that $40 support, and so far that 15% update today could maybe be the beginning of another uptrend here.
SMCI is one of the craziest big tech stocks I've seen over the past couple of years. This stock straight up in 2024 went from, well, I know it's split, so it's a little bit different than what it used to be, but it went from $28 a share all the way up to $123 a share, only to fall all the way back down to like 40, and now it's starting to show some bullish momentum again. This stock is crazy, but it does have some of the craziest and best moves in like the market on an intraday basis. When we look at SMCI's intraday price action today, like when this stock trends, it seriously moves with momentum. So let's keep an extra close eye on this stock for tomorrow, where we don't even care truly like what direction it moves in. We care more so about like riding the momentum that is associated with this stock. Of course, it would be a lot easier, and the momentum is currently on the bullish side. But at the same time, if we see a strong rejection off this triple top today, right around $48.50, there's nothing wrong with playing like a rejection either to the downside.
Yeah, there definitely wouldn't be. And, the market didn't really perform very well today. And, let's say tomorrow there's a bit of a slowdown on the momentum with SMCI and the market starting to dip back down. That'll be something to definitely keep in mind there with the SMCI play. But I will say, though, the move up today was pretty nice, 15.79%. Be very wary of the $50 mark coming up. I'm sure that's going to be a pretty crazy psychological level as well.
Big time. And then, Tom, as we look at SPY, like you said, there was a decent amount of profit taking today as we saw almost 80% of the S&P 500 down in the red. What do you have for us in terms of key levels and charting analysis?
Yeah, I'm here looking at the SPY in the short term. There's actually a pretty good trend line overhead that the SPY is continuing to reject off of, so I'm watching that. It's also continuing to reject off that 573 resistance that we talked about in last night's video. Whenever the SPY opened up today, it actually gapped down pretty good in pre-market. Then when the market opened, it actually followed suit and kept up with that good downside momentum there. We fell all the way down to around that 566.50 to 566 support. So I'm going to really be watching 565 and 566 as major support tomorrow. That is the recent low, as you can see highlighted at the bottom of the chart here. If we break under that, I think that we'll see a lot more significant selling, but even a move down to like 565 would still be a pretty decent downside move there. If we end up recovering, I'm watching 570 and 572 and 573 as the major resistances.
Sounds good. I'll tell you, Tom, as we know and as we've covered over the past couple of videos, October is normally a pretty bearish month of the stock market just in general, but especially so when we've had a strong start to the year, just like this year. But when you also I guess you could say compound that with the election year that we're in, it makes for a little bit of a risky situation right now, and that's not even including any of the geopolitical risk, especially in the Middle East right now. All of this makes for a situation where it makes it a decent time to just de-risk a little bit or, lock in some profits ahead of the election. And as we look at SPY right now, we are heading into a pretty key area of support right around 566. So honestly, if this area of support breaks, I think that's going to be a major, major warning sign for the market.
Yeah, me too. I actually can't wait for it to break, Mike, because it's going to bring in a lot of volatility. And, going back to the VIX from today, the volatility started to actually pick up pretty well here in the short term. VIX was up 17%. And I think that with everything going on across the world, that's a good sign. And we're also continuing to see VIX also bounce off pretty key supports and trends as well. So we're continuing to see some great movement here in the short term. Unfortunately, it is to the downside. I know a lot of people might not want to see it to the downside, but at the end of the day, continue to adapt in the market. We've been on a pretty good run this year overall, and of course, October is historically one of the worst months during an election year. And I will say, though, Mike, I think that really the big thing in the short term is this Middle East fear. I feel like last week, that's what really started to spark some of the selling.
Absolutely. So that's a key event to keep on watch for this week. But there are even other events on the schedule as well in terms of economic events, earnings, and even some company-specific things too.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. And I'm looking here at the FOMC minutes coming up on Wednesday. That's going to be the next major thing there. Thursday, we do have the inflation rate and the CPI data. And then Friday, we have PPI data and the Michigan consumer sentiment. So that's all the economic data rundown. Now, before we go to earnings, Tesla does have their robo-taxi day coming up here on October 10th. It's going to be an event where they're looking to maybe unveil the robo-taxis. People are maybe looking for a demo or something along those lines with this event. But Mike, looking at the earnings calendar, there's quite a bit of earnings as the week goes on. Pepsi reports tomorrow morning, but Tilray reports Thursday, and then all the banks on Friday.
Sounds good. Well, let's get right to it then with some setups and predictions. A stock I'm watching very closely right now is Google with an L to the downside. For those of you who don't know, Google actually has two ticker symbols, GOOGL, and then just Goog, which is GOOG. The Google with an L normally is just a little bit better. It's the Class A shares, but basically the same thing. But anyways, looking at Google right now, the short-term price action has just been brutal. This stock's intraday price action alone was just bearish almost all day long. When you zoom out a little bit, you can see ever since like the beginning of July, this stock has just been constantly getting rejected and putting more and more pressure on its lows. This makes for a lot of bearish sentiment, momentum, and just price action as a whole as we are heading into a weak time of the year for the market. Plus, we are already seeing increased selling pressure in profit taking across the board in the S&P 500. Google is one of the top stocks I have on my bearish radar right now, just because it's been so weak and it's at a point right now where it has bounced up a little bit from some of its recent lows right around that $148.50 area. But at the same time, it's not like crazy overextended to the point where it, I guess you could say, makes this play not as good as it could be. Overall, I like the setup, and it's on my bearish radar.
Yeah, I definitely like that resistance overhead. It keeps rejecting right here, and I'll keep watching Google to the downside, Mike. With my first play, I'm looking at Amazon also to the downside. Amazon in the short term has also been pretty bearish, especially over the past couple of weeks. It's been pulling back pretty hard from around that 195 resistance. Now it's all the way down to the key 180 support, and I'm really waiting for this 180 mark to give out because there was 184,000 shares stacked there on the Bookmap, and we have links down below for the Bookmap in the description as well, so make sure you check that out. We do have some specials if you use our link, of course. But at the end of the day, Mike, 180, pretty big level here for Amazon. If we see the market become bearish tomorrow and the SPYs continuing to have this downside momentum, this could be a pretty good play under that support.
Love it. All right, I will keep that one on watch as well. But another stock that is on my bearish radar is CrowdStrike. This stock has been struggling quite a bit ever since its minor outage a couple months ago. And looking at this stock, it has rebounded quite a bit from its recent lows, right around $200 a share. It's now gotten to the point where it actually retraced all the way back to 300, but it is in the process of rejecting off that level and making a lower high, which is good to see. Either way, I really like the reward to risk playing at CrowdStrike in a bearish way over these next couple of weeks, where like a stop loss can be placed right around like just above like $300, maybe like 302 to 303, and then that's a stop loss in the worst case scenario. But in the best case scenario, we could see a retest of 260 to 240 and maybe even lower, depending on how bearish the sentiment in the market gets. But either way, it's definitely on my bearish radar.
Yeah, I really like it here at that $300 resistance, Mike. The risk reward is fantastic. And if we go back to the Bookmap again, 300 is huge on this stock. Of course, it's a psychological level, so you would expect some sellers to be there. And, on CrowdStrike, there's about 30,000 shares stacked there. Each stock is more volatile than the other. Of course, CrowdStrike isn't going to have like the same amount of shares as NVIDIA would stacked at its larger levels. But nonetheless, 300 is huge on CrowdStrike. I'll definitely be watching this one to the downside. And with my next play, I'm looking at UVXY to the upside here in the short term as the SPY continues to fall in the QQQ and some of these bigger tech stocks. The VIX has been really exploding, and of course there's more fear pouring in the market from the Israel situation, but essentially UVXY is an ETF that follows VIX, and it pops off quite a bit. It was up 13% today, and the options can go up a hell of a lot more than that. So definitely keep your eye on UVXY in the short term, especially if this downside momentum continues.
Love to see it. All right, Tom. Well, it's now about that time for today's momentum plays. And you already know, with the first one, we have GNRC to the upside.
Yeah, it's popping here. If it ends up breaking above 176 right around the high of day, keep watching Generac to the upside.
All right. With the next one, we have SMCI also to the upside.
Yeah, starting to go crazy here. If it breaks 48.50, watch SMCI up.
All right, and then with the last one, we have UCO also to the upside.
Yeah, an oil stock here up 6% today. If this one ends up breaking above 31, watch UCO to the upside.
All right, so we have these 3 stocks on watch for potential day trades tomorrow. If and only if they break through the levels Tom listed, we are looking for strong, consistent price action. The stronger these stocks move, the better the setups become because the momentum just strengthens more and more. If these stocks aren't really moving that much or if they don't break the levels listed, then don't force the setups. Again, we are looking for strong momentum here, but now that the momentum plays are out of the way, let's jump right into today's $800,000 big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol SHEL. So SHEL is a company that I'm sure most of you have heard about. It is Shell, and they are an oil and gas company that, as you can assume, has a lot to benefit from rising oil prices. The big money bought the 70 strike call options on this stock that expire on April 17th of 2025. This is a $800,000 trade, so it's a decent size. These call options are already in the money, and these options have a lot of time to them. Like we talked about when we were covering oil in today's video, this whole geopolitical situation that's happening in the Middle East right now is something that, is not going to end tomorrow, right? It is something that has real world effects, and a lot of people who are trading oil and energy in a bullish way right now are buying time with their positions. So with that being said, if you are considering following this trade, it is extremely, extremely important that you give the trade the time it needs. The big money bought all the way out until April of 2025 for a reason. They are not looking to day trade this stock tomorrow or even close it next week. They're trading the broader, I guess you could say, root reasons at hand. So either way, keep SHEL on watch.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they're probably not going to exit for a little while either on this play. And, whenever you're looking at the overall move on a stock like this and you're giving a stock multiple months to actually run, if SHEL starts to really get some good momentum and break the all-time high, the people that are trading it in the short term might actually end up missing out on even more gains, right? Because you're not giving it the time it needs to allow the option to truly start to run. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way about XOP right now. I bet a lot of people started getting out of it like on the very first day it popped, and then they missed the next few days where the option really started to blast off, right? So you got to give these plays a little bit more time, but overall I do like it quite a bit. Of course, anything with oil in the short term has the potential to really keep going, and SHEL is down quite a bit. It's not like it's at its recent highs or anything yet. If it does start to get back towards that 74, 75 resistance, then I'll start being more careful.
Sounds good, but as we look across the entire market right now, it is a great time to be a trader. Not only do we have a lot going on in the market right now, but there's a lot that's going to happen over these next couple of months and even throughout the end of this year as the election, closes up and everything like that. One of the most important and best things that anyone can do as a trader is putting yourself in a position to win. Of course, following the money and trading with the flows is very important, but the results of any trade that you take should either be a small win, a big win, or a small loss. If you are setting up trades correctly and you truly are putting yourself in a position to win, it should be impossible for you to have a big loss. And this is why it's so important to, have stop losses for every trade that you take and not marrying any one specific setup. Don't try to be the perfect trader. If you have a losing setup, that's okay. Take the loss and move on. But when you get emotionally attached to any one setup, it makes losses way worse than they should be, right? This is one of the key things that I see with traders over and over again, and this is why we talk so much about not only having good trading habits, but focusing on the fundamentals of trading, because ultimately those matter a lot more than any fancy short-term trade. So remember, focus on the fundamentals first. We talk about this so much in the StockedUp trading floor. With the StockedUp trading floor, you also get access to chat with Tom and myself all day long. Use our custom bots, join our weekly live events, access to big money trades, and everything else you could need as a short-term trader. So if this sounds something that could help you out, definitely check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. We also had a pretty great hybrid bot play today with some QQQ put options that went from $425 all the way up to $670, which made for a nice 57% gainer right in the middle of the day. It was a nice smooth trade as well. As we could see, a lot of people did very well with this in the profits channel, which was very awesome to see. And we actually want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Cricket Ninja, who said, did a few scalps on QQQ puts today based off Hybrid Bots alert and combined it with technicals I've been learning from our community. Thanks, Tom and Mike, and amazing community members. And he posted a great screenshot as well. So huge shout out to you, to Cricket Ninja. Keep up the great work going forward. But besides that, everyone, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it this week.